wish, I can say the Michaels or the Reggies or those, but the one I really hated to guard was Larry Bird. He was not a nice guy.
Larry Bird talked more trash on the basketball court than anybody I've ever played against. And he told me two things one game.
This is the story. I haven't seen it, but this is the story. Larry got the ball against John Koncak, and he's like, looked to the coach. He's like, you went with him on this matchup? And I guess Larry Bird just dropped the ball and said, man, I don't even want this shit.
Larry Bird had a way of making you regret guarding him, and he didn't have to talk much to do it. But when he did talk, his words cut deep. Bird's trash talk wasn't for entertainment or showmanship. It was a weapon, a way to gain an edge, get into his opponent's heads, and tell them exactly what he was going to do before he did it. And the thing was, he always backed it up. Play after play, shot after shot. Bird didn't need social media clips or viral moments. His reputation spread through locker rooms, televised highlights, and stories shared by players who learned the hard way. He wasn't the most athletic player, and he didn't have a flashy appearance. But if you were the one guarding him, he made sure you walked off the floor feeling embarrassed. He would tell defenders exactly where he planned to shoot from and then pull up right in their faces. He'd challenge coaches to put someone tougher on him, and half the time, he'd start talking before the game even officially began. Sometimes, he talked as he walked onto the court. Today, we're looking at some of the best moments where Larry Bird completely disrespected NBA players. Not with dirty plays or cheap shots, but with skill, confidence, and constant, relentless trash talk. Take Eddie Johnson, for example. Johnson wasn't just some bench player, he was a confident scorer who could hold his own. But even he wasn't prepared for what happened when he went up against Larry Bird. Johnson remembers it clearly. The game hadn't even started yet. Bird walked up to him, looked him straight in the eye, and that's when it all began.
He walks out, and he just stands next to me, and he leans over and he looks at me. Hey, do you honestly think you gonna guard me? You all think this rookie gonna guard me? I'ma bust you up. He walks around, stands in front of me, he said, I'm gonna tell you something right now. I'm gonna wear your ass out. Game starts, and he's just wearing me out. He came down, he said, you talking all that junk. I bet you can't do this.
That wasn't just a one-liner, it was a mission statement. And Larry Bird followed through on every word. From the opening possession, he went straight at Eddie Johnson, picking him apart with ease. There was no hesitation, no doubt, just pure confidence backed by precision. What made it even more painful was how effortless Bird made it look. He didn't celebrate, didn't show off. He just executed, calmly and clinically, like he already knew exactly how the night would go. Johnson tried to respond, tried to match the intensity, but by the end of the game, the result was undeniable. Bird had dominated him. Mark Price, on the other hand, was a completely different type of player. He was a technician, smart, composed, and deadly accurate from deep. Price didn't need to talk to make noise. His game did that for him. But early in his career, before the All-Star selections and the respect he would later earn, he was just a young guard trying to prove he belonged among the league's elite shooters. He got that chance during his first ever NBA three-point contest. Surrounded by some of the league's best shooters, Price sat quietly in the locker room, observing the moment. The competition was minutes away from beginning. But something, or rather someone, was missing. And that's when the atmosphere shifted.
Man, my favorite three-point story of all time was my first time I ever competed. And of course, I don't know how they do it now, but they bring you in a locker room. You're all sitting there, kind of talking with one another, waiting for them to call you to go out. And Larry Bird was in the contest my first year, and everybody was in the room, but Larry wasn't there. And guys were kind of saying, anybody seen Larry? Whatever. And all of a sudden, right before we're supposed to go out, the door opens and Larry sticks his head in. And he says, oh, hey guys, this must be the room for second place.
That was Larry Bird. No warm-up, no build-up, no long stretch of trash talk, just one single line, cold and precise. Then he went out and backed it up by winning the entire contest, like the outcome had already been determined before it even began. For Mark Price, that moment wasn't about showmanship. It was about presence. Bird didn't need to hype himself up or intimidate anyone. He simply walked in, stated what was going to happen, and then made everyone watch him do it. Craig Ello was a player who took pride in his defense. He wasn't the fastest or the flashiest guy on the court, but he worked hard every possession. He would take charges, fight through screens, and handle all the gritty details coaches love but fans rarely notice. And when he matched up against Larry Bird, he wasn't intimidated. He was ready to compete. There was a night in Cleveland when Bird wasn't shooting well in the first half. Elo and the Cavaliers looked like they might finally be getting the upper hand. As both teams headed through the same tunnel at halftime, Craig saw an opening to say something. A small comment, a little jab to acknowledge Bird's rough start. What happened next would be a moment he'd never forget. Bird heard him, turned, and delivered a response that everyone in that tunnel, including Elo, would remember long after the game was over.
Larry Bird, he was not a nice guy. Matter of fact, there was one game in Cleveland where he was having a pretty rough first half, and in the old days in Cleveland, you walked off the court the same way at halftime, and I kind of puffed up on him and walked beside him and was like, yeah, you're 1 for 10. I was like, that's defense, and he just kind of looked at me and said, there's 2 halves. And he came back out and hit about 10 in a row on me, and the last one was left-handed, and he asked me if my mother was watching because he wanted to embarrass me. So, yeah, so he was tough.
That was Larry Bird. He heard everything, remembered everything, and once he got back on the court, he made sure you remembered it too. He came out in the second half and scored 10 straight buckets, finishing it off with a left-handed jumper just to make the point even clearer. Bird didn't need to shout, didn't need to put on a show. He would just give you that look, say one quiet line, and then spend the rest of the night proving exactly what he meant. For someone like Craig Elo, that wasn't just a highlight. It was a lesson. You don't poke the bear. Especially not when the bear wears number 33 and has a jumper that doesn't miss twice. Rod Strickland didn't have a long history with Larry Bird. Their careers only briefly overlapped. By the time Strickland was finding his rhythm in the league, Bird's body was already beginning to break down. But even then, even late in his career, Bird still had moments that left an impression. There was no build-up, no trash talk, no dramatic storyline. Just one single play in an ordinary regular season game, and Strickland never forgot it.
Long, because he was hurt when I was playing that first year or second year. But I just remember one quick thing. We were playing against him, and I think I stole the ball from him. And I just remember him turning around saying, you little piece of and I was like, that, to me, that was Larry Bird. And I was so happy because I'm like, that Larry Bird told me you're a little piece of
That's how it was with Larry Bird. He didn't need the crowd behind him, didn't need to be fully healthy, and he didn't even need to be winning. All he needed was a reason. And sometimes, that reason was as small as a rookie trying to swipe the ball from him. But that's what made these moments unforgettable. Even with one quick insult, Bird made it feel intentional. He wasn't talking just to annoy you, he was acknowledging you in his own legendary, twisted way. For a young player like Rod Strickland, that ended up being a badge of honor. When one of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball turns and curses you out in the middle of a play, you don't walk off the court offended. You walk away with a story you'll tell for the next 30 years. Kevin McHale saw this side of Larry Bird his entire career. In practice, in the locker room, on the road, and under the bright lights, if anyone understood how Bird thought, it was McHale. And even he couldn't believe some of the things Larry pulled off. Before one game, the Celtics were just going through their normal warm-up routine. Nothing seemed unusual. Then Larry stood up, and just like that, the switch flipped.
Larry stands up and Larry says, a couple other few choice words, and he says, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to take it out on their rear ends. So I was like, oh, all right, so let's go. So we go on the floor. Albert King sitting there, and Larry walks up to Albert King and goes, don't take this butt whooping personally. I've been eating hot dogs all day. And then Albert King looks at him like, you've been eating hot dogs all day? What's that got to do with me? And we went out and just hammered him. I mean, we terrorized them. And that was Larry. There was no excuses. I mean, he just played. And I tell you, that was just his competitive nature.
But that was classic Larry Bird. He didn't need a pregame ritual. He didn't need fiery speeches or dramatic warm-ups. Sometimes it was just a few quiet words, or even a few hot dogs, and then he would walk onto the court and dominate. What made it even more brutal was how openly he announced it. Bird didn't hide his intentions. He would look you straight in the eyes and tell you exactly what he was about to do, then go out and do it, exactly as promised. Albert King never stood a chance. By the time the game even tipped off, Bird had already decided how it was going to end. Because for Larry, being great wasn't enough. He wanted you to know he could beat you while barely trying, while joking, while talking, while playing through a stomach full of junk food, and still run you off the court. And somehow, that made the whole thing feel even more disrespectful. John Sally came into the league with swagger. He played with an edge, talked back, and wasn't intimidated by anyone. He'd battled scorers, banged with big men, and handled trash talk just fine. But Larry Bird was something different. Bird didn't need to yell, didn't need to flex, didn't need theatrics. He could embarrass you quietly, and then top it off with the most disrespectful one-liner of the night, delivered in the calmest tone possible.
Like, you know how you play defense, you lean, and then they don't do this anymore, but they punt and they do a fadeaway? Mm-hmm. Right? Everyone did it, right? Guys would bang you and then fade away on one leg, try to be like, Wilt Chamberlain. Larry would hit you and go like this, and then you would fly by.
Shot fake.
And he'd be like, stupid. Stupid. I'm just constantly snapping, saying things like, oh my God, I'm gonna give you 50 tonight. You know, he was like, oh my God, they're not gonna throw you the ball. They're not gonna throw you the ball.
That was Larry Bird at his coldest. Calling you out in the middle of the play, mocking your defense, and casually reminding you that your own team didn't even trust you enough to give you the ball back. He didn't have to yell. He didn't have to get emotional. All he had to do was outthink you. And when he did, which was almost every time, he let you know it with a single word, a stare, or the perfect one-line insult delivered at exactly the right moment. And that fadeaway jumper of his wasn't flashy. It wasn't fast. But it was unstoppable. You'd lean into it, thinking you finally had him contained, and then, before you even processed what happened, the ball was already drifting through the net. Meanwhile, Bird was jogging back down the court, shaking his head like it was just another Tuesday afternoon. For John Sally, that wasn't just trash talk. It was a reality check.